Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you all. Welcome to our Library Makers little webinar workshop thing we got going on today. My name is Kelly. I work at Lincoln Township Library in Stevensville, Michigan, and I'm also the events chairperson for Library Makers. And just kind of a recap for Library Makers. We are a community. We like to connect and support library maker staff of all experiences from all over. We recognize your experiences and strengths and hope to build like a big community. We want to create a safe and welcoming space for everybody to ask questions and learn skills and equip everybody with advances in library and technology and all the fun maker stuff. So real quick, I had everyone kind of fill out a poll. So I'm just going to go ahead and end it really quickly because people are starting to trickle in. I will share the results so everyone can kind of see. So we got a lot of people in the West, a few people in the Midwest and South. One person outside of the U.S. Awesome. A lot of people in public libraries with academic kind of falling behind, following, I should say, sorry. A lot of people in urban and rural areas. It's really good. So good to see. We're happy to have everybody here. We're so excited for today. So really quickly, I'm going to introduce Godwyn Morris is going to be leading today's workshop. So she works in New York City. She is the director of Dazzling Discoveries and Skill Mill NYC, which she'll definitely talk about here. She'll definitely talk about here more in just a second. And you guys are, and as she said before, if you have like any tape, papers, I think scissors, I couldn't remember if that's what you said, just any like fun things and you want to like kind of follow along with her, you're definitely welcome to. And if you have any questions during the event, you're welcome to put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and we can answer them throughout. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and give the floor to Godwyn.
Okay, great. Get your screen off. And again, copy paper. If you want to follow along, it's really simple. We're doing something called engineering with paper. So we need copy paper or cover stock paper is fine. Any scrap paper is fine. Tape, masking tape is great, but any kind of tape and a pair of scissors so that we can work along. Okay, so I'm going to get started since this is recording anyway. So you will be able to watch the beginning if you're coming in late. So I'm in New York City, and I did notice on the poll there's nobody from the Northeast, but that's fine. And I'm going to just share my screen, and then we're going to talk about how to make things. So, okay, so I just put this up. You can take a quick snapshot. I'll come back to this again. We have an email list, and we'd like to invite people to join it, but I will come back to this screen. It's always, people aren't always ready to fill that out right now. Okay. So I am based in New York City. I run a makerspace program. We call it a STEM education center. I have two physical storefronts in Manhattan on the Upper West Side, near Columbia University. We're not directly affiliated with them, but we do a lot of work with families from there, and we're on the Upper West Side in that neighborhood. So we have one place called Dazzling Discoveries, which is like elementary school classroom space. We have lots of craft supplies. And the other space is called Skill Mill NYC, and that's a more familiar makerspace environment. We have a laser cutter, we have a big laser cutter, we have some 3D printers, we have sewing machines, and we have vinyl cutter, we have tables and tools and robotics and all that. So the combination of these two spaces lets me run programs for students. They come to our spaces when schools are closed. So the President's Day weekend will be running, not the weekend, but the Monday, Tuesday, we'll be running camp days. And when schools are closed, summer, all throughout the year, students come to us. When schools are open, we have field trips that come to us because most schools don't have all this equipment. And so kids will come to us with their teachers, and we do special projects. And then the third thing we do is we run after school classes, but not in our space, because in New York City, and I suppose everywhere, it's just hard to move the kids from school to us. So we go to them. We do not take any of the equipment. Everything we do in schools is something that we can pack easily in a large bag. And every afternoon, I have staff, me and my staff, we have schools we've worked with for many, many years, and we show up at the school for about an hour, hour and a half for after school classes. And the classes are all either science focused or engineering focused. And I've been doing this for 25 plus years. And so over the years of doing this direct work with students, I created some what I call products. I don't know how else to describe them. One is a cardboard engineering kit that we sell. And that is, I'm not promoting it. I just mention it. It comes in a big bag. You can buy that. That's the DazzLinks that are on this screen. But then the more relevant today is our engineering with paper. And engineering with paper is a methodology for using shapes, three-dimensional shapes, and then building with them. And I'm going to explain it in detail and show you how to do it. It's very straightforward, it's very simple, and it's really, really effective. So that's what's on that screen. And again, I have my side screen. I can't see. So I can't see right in front of me what you're seeing, but I can see it on my side, which is why I'm looking sideways. So you should be able to see this very colorful screen. This shows some of the kinds of projects that you can make with our engineering with paper methodology. And before I go further, I always like to mention that we were published. We had 4 projects published in the New York Times during the pandemic. Every week they were running projects made with newspaper. And so we submitted the first one and they loved that. And then they had us do some additional ones. And these are all projects that are in our whole repertoire. We generally recommend using copy paper rather than newsprint because newsprint's a little bit too flimsy for a lot of this, but it worked great. We did it for the New York Times and we're part of their historical record. If you search my name on the New York Times, this is what comes up. Okay, so the basic concept behind what I'm going to go over with you and our engineering with paper methodology is that there are, as you well know, really thousands and thousands of challenges. And what we have found over the years is the problem isn't the challenges the problem for the students isn't the challenge, it's how to use the materials. We find that some kids do know how to roll paper or fold paper or cut and use materials, but we find that a decent percentage of kids really don't, or they move too fast, or they don't think about it, they just haven't had exposure to it. And we find that that gets in the way significantly more often than the ideas about the actual challenge. And so we developed this method as a way to what we call here, leveling the playing field, getting every student on the same page per se. And we do that by teaching you as the adults, and then you teach the students how to make standard shapes. You've all worked with kindergarten blocks, or I know you're all familiar with kindergarten blocks, and those are standard shapes. And you put that out and kids make a million different things. So engineering with paper is the same idea. We have some standard shapes. They're a little different than you would have in a set of blocks, but standard shapes, which I'm going to show you and show you how to make them. But taking those standard shapes and then assembling them in many, many different ways to make many, many different things. Whoops. So this is what we call leveling the playing field, using supplies you already have. This doesn't cost very much money, and then making a series of shapes and building with them. So this is the page I like to show because these are some of the projects that we have come up with. The real underlying idea behind this is we teach you the shapes, you teach them the shapes, and we don't care what you make with them literally, because once you know how to do that, you can build. But a lot of people need help with ideas or themes, or they just don't have time to figure all kinds of things out. So we've also created a lot of example projects. And so from this picture, just quickly, I'll point out a couple of the shapes and then we'll go over making them. The car at the very top, the vehicle, that's the core piece of that is what we call our paper tray. That same paper tray is used in, at the very bottom, the horizontal axle spinner, which is a kind of a Ferris wheel. That's also the paper tray. The house right next to it, or the home right next to it, is also the paper tray. And what you will find as we go through this is that many of these projects really just use two shapes. That Ferris wheel at the bottom is two shapes. It's cylinders and the paper tray. The home is the paper tray and then strips of paper as the beams. That same paper tray is in the tilting maze in the middle of the page. So the idea is the same shapes can be used in many, many different ways. Anyway, I doubt there are any questions at this point, but feel free to ask questions as we go. It's easier than waiting till the end because then it relates to what we're talking about. This is just a page saying you can use this concept in anything. It doesn't have to be science, or it doesn't even have to be engineering. It can be definitely storytelling and literacy. It relates very well, and I'm going to show you that. But it relates to history. It relates to whatever topics you're teaching. Kids can make things from these shapes that relate to whatever you're teaching. So now I'm just going to run through a few examples so you see how these work. And again, this is the Ferris wheel or the horizontal spinner. It's two shapes, cylinders and paper trays. This is one of the many, many versions of a marble run or a ball run that you can make. Again, it's two shapes. It's our track shape and our rectangular prism shape. This is a parachute project. This one's pretty clear. This is a paper tray with two extra cuts in it, so that instead of it being a flat tray, you can fold it in half. And we just turned it into a kind of a puppet or a character. This is a really simple project of a paper hat, which is literally strips of paper. What we find when people make hats is they don't always make the piece that goes over the top of the head, and that really helps to stabilize the hat. So that's really the big secret in this particular project. I know you're all library people, and so we have an extensive storytelling bundle where we have different ways of making characters that can move. Almost everything we make moves in some way. Engineering with paper is almost always connected to a project that can move. So this is obviously the kind of a marionette. This is, you can see what this is. And again, this is made with just literally pieces of paper folded into sticks. That's what's behind this. It's two sticks kind of layered on top of each other, and one of them can move. It has a little band around it to keep the sticks together. So it's much simpler than it looks. This is what we call our vertical spinner. So this is another set of axles, similar to the horizontal spinner or the Ferris wheel. It's just tubes that are different widths, and look how easily they turn. This is the vehicle. The vehicle I recommend for middle school, maybe upper elementary school. It's a little tricky to put this one together, whereas the hat is great for kindergarten. You can make your own judgments, but the more parts, the more challenging it might be, which would help you do an age range gauging, because that's often a question that I get. This is the maze, which actually can work for almost everybody. We've used these projects with high school students and kindergartners. They run the gamut. Some projects are more complicated and are better for older kids, and some are simpler and obviously better for younger kids. Also, all of our projects can be made with copy paper. Many of them are a little bit better with cover stock, like this one is a little bit better made with cover stock, but everything can be made with copy paper. We wanted to make it as accessible as possible. And I'll show you. This is actually one of my favorite ones because it's the most surprising. It's not one that people think about when they're making things with paper, but this is a balance beam. And this is using really one main shape, our track shape, and that's the top piece. And then it's strips of paper folded over and then just turned into loops. But I've done this with kids and they make all kinds of things that they hang from the sides to create the weights. This is all paper. And then for particularly middle school, upper elementary and middle and high school, we have a whole series of projects you can make with what we call paper tubes and paper straws. And that's a method of rolling paper consistently around pencils or markers so that you get consistent shapes. This you need copy paper for. You don't want to roll cover stock, but the softer the paper, the easier it is to roll. And we make a lot of projects with paper straws. I highly recommend this as a material. If you have scrap paper, have students roll it into straws. I may not have time to go into it later, so I'm just going to mention it now. What we use are half sheets of copy paper for the straws. So that makes them about 5.5 inches long. You want to keep with that size because you need, if you're rolling around a pencil, the pencil will stick out at both ends so that you can slide the straw off of it. And also, it just makes the projects a little smaller. I mean, you may have a lot of room and then you could use bigger sticks, but for us, we're in New York City, is not as much space. The 5.5 inch by 8 inch paper rolled, it makes the best size. Okay, so the first thing that we do when we run our classes, and I work with upwards of 300 children a week, and we always rip what we call rip the tape first. So you can do this for them if they're in kindergarten, or if you can teach your students how to rip their own or cut their own. If you can get kids to cut tape into small pieces, sort of about inch and a half length, it makes the edges smoother, but a lot of people like to just rip masking tape. That doesn't matter so much, but you want to pre-rip the tape. So you can put it on water bottles. You can put it, if your tables are made of plastic, you could put them on the tables. We use Chinese food containers, or takeout food containers, upside down as a tray, and we put tape on that. Like anything plastic that the tape won't stick to very well because it has to be pulled off. It is so helpful to have the tape ripped before you start the projects, because many of the projects you're using both hands to hold it together, and you don't you can't let go to go then rip tape, but you can usually kind of grab one that's already ripped. So this is one of our big tips for what seems like a simple step. So all of our projects come with these black and white line art drawings that you could either print out or post up on a screen. This one is more for you as the educator, not as much for the students. We have some standard sizes. So a lot of what we do works very well with any kind of math learning because there's a lot of ratio and proportion built into it. So I'm going to just see. And then we have these line arts. So I'm going to show you how to make these projects. But what I want to do right now, just to break up the screen viewing, is if you have paper with you, I'm going to show you what we recommend doing. And you might want to do this along with me. So we fold the paper and we fold it in half and then cut it. But I just want to show you this sort of plan of this is what we wind up with. So if you're ready to follow along, I would say take a full sheet of copy paper and fold it in half, what we call short edge to short edge. When we talk about paper, we only talk about what's directly in front of us. We don't like to talk about other references. So we don't mention hamburgers and hot dogs because we don't know where the students are from. We don't know what food they've eaten. It's just, we like to just talk about what we can see in the room with us. So if you take a full sheet of paper, you can see that it has longer edges and shorter edges. And so that's the language that we use. And we call these planes, we call them sides. So these are the edges and these are the sides. We just need that language because we have hundreds and hundreds of pages of this documentation, and we need a consistent way to reference what we're talking about. But let's just take a piece of paper and cut it up. So you have a few samples. If you have 2 sheets, let's do it with 2 sheets. So take the sheet of paper and fold it in half, short edge to short edge, lining up the corners. And then another thing we find with students is they have trouble pressing the folded edge to make a sharp crease. We have a few techniques for this pinching, but sometimes they'll pinch right over it and go like this and still not realize that. So we generally recommend doing this flat on a table. So they could take their hand and rub it. We also take a marker and like a rolling pin, have them push down and roll it across. We emphasize those techniques because in the long run, that's what they need. They need to know how to make a sharp crease. They don't necessarily need to know how to make the Ferris wheel, but they need to know how to make a sharp crease because that's a skill they're going to use over and over for years and years. So we practice that. In this case, we're actually going to be ripping or cutting the paper, so the crease is not as critical. So what you want to do is take this, now that you've folded it in half, cut it in half so that you have 2 half sheets of paper. And I'll give you a second just to do that. And then I don't know how many of you are actually following along, and hopefully people watching the video will also follow along with this. So
I personally didn't come prepared, so I have like a little post-it note thing that's already
great. It works. It all works. That's actually great because it all works the same way. It's not, this whole method isn't meant for any particular size paper. It's meant for whatever you have. And you can still do the same thing. You can still split that in half. And then once you have a half sheet, you're going to take that and fold it in half. Again, short edge to short edge in this case. And again, fold it, line up the corners. And this is terminology we use with students. Line up the corners. I'll walk around and make sure. And if they can't line it up, I help them a little bit because it takes a little practice. We find that the first couple of times students do things, it doesn't go as, it's not as straight as they might want it or as it would be useful for them. But then we practice and they get better at it. And that's, again, the goal is these motor skills. So take this and then cut that in half. So you've got a half sheet now, and then you should have 2 half sheets. So we're going to take one and fold that, cut that. So then you should have 2 quarter sheets. And for our purposes right now, that's fine. But then if you take this quarter sheet and again, short edge to short edge, fold in half and cut that, you get an 1/8 sheet. We take paper in our facility. We have paper cutters, and we pre-cut the paper so that we have piles of these sizes already cut. And we'll often even cut this down to a 1/16, but it's all proportional to each other because what happens is when you start to make the shapes, you may want a paper tray that's this size, and you may want a paper tray that's this size because they go together in some way. So having different size pieces of paper is a great way to start. And then you use the size you need to make the shape that you need. We put them in Ziploc bags and label them so remember which sizes they are. I mean, we can usually see it, but still you want that just as a way to keep it. These are just some of the tips and tricks that we have. Okay, so let me go back now that we've done. So then this document, this is a free download on our website. We have many free projects on the website. We sell some of the projects because it takes us months and months to create them, and I pay somebody to do that, so it just helps me recoup some of the expenses of producing them. But there's a lot of free material on our website, and once you download it, you use it in any way you want. It's just like having a book. You can share it in any way you want. We don't police anybody. We don't care. We don't track anything. We're just trying to get this methodology out. But as I said, we charge just because it costs a lot to produce them. So that's just because it's on the side here, it's just a little tricky. Okay. So the packets all come with what we call these technique pages. And each technique page talks about making a different shape. So we're going to start by making a rectangular prism. And again, I'm going to stop sharing just to show you how to do this. And then we're going to make a couple of projects with that. So you're going to take, let's take the half sheet of paper. So it doesn't really matter which one you take, but take the half sheet of paper and you've got your longer edges and shorter edges. And you're going to take it and fold it in half, short edge to short edge. And then you're going to rub that crease. I just realized that I have my samples here, but I already taped them. So you're going to fold your paper in half, rub the crease, and then open it up. And you're going to have a crease in the middle. With students, I will often go around, either have them or I draw a pencil line, or it doesn't really matter what kind of line, so that you can see the crease. Depends on the lighting in your room. Sometimes it's hard to see. So you want to know where that middle is. And then you're going to fold each side into the middle and put a piece of tape. And I call that cabinet doors. I find that I've not been in a classroom that doesn't have cabinet doors. If you're in a cafeteria, I mean, there's almost always cabinets somewhere nearby. But if that's not something easy to see, then don't make that reference. You just call them flaps. But you want to tape them. We talk about taping what we call the tall way along the seam, because if you don't tell them that, they will put 10 pieces of tape horizontally. So what you want is one longer piece or two shorter pieces, but you want them going the tall way. And you need, again, that's another point to emphasize with students, because they will not naturally come to that method. So once you've got this, if you then pop it open, you get what we call a rectangular prism. So now I'm going to go back and share and show you what we do. We have a lot of fun tricks with the rectangular prism. Okay. So this is the page that explains how to do this. What we find is helpful if you are sharing these pages with students, if you print them out and put them in sheet protectors. You can print a few copies and put them out, and the kids can follow along. So this makes a triangular prism also, but the rectangular prism is the one we use the most. And once you've got that, what you look at the rectangular prism, what does it look like to you? These are some ideas of things that we find that we see, or that we find that kids see. It's regularly a building. And again, if you're making multiple buildings and you use different size paper, you'll have different size buildings, and you can create a city block or a neighborhood or any kind of thing. If you turn the same rectangular prism horizontally, you can see that you can make it into a car. You can also make it into a tunnel. You can make it into whatever it makes sense to you. We made it into a refrigerator, just to sort of show you. Okay, and so now that you've had that one, and I don't know if anybody has made this, so I'm going to keep going, but let me know if there's anything in the chat, any questions, anything to add. So there's some techniques. Once you have this rectangular prism, you can adjust it in some different ways. And one of the ways is by cutting these slits in it. And I'll show you how this works, but let me first show you what the most popular thing we do with this is. We turn it into a chair or a couch. And it's a pretty simple technique. And I'm going to, I guess it's just easier if I stop sharing. You may be able to see it from this, but I can show it to you on this. Once you have, and also this time of day, I get sunlight for 1 hour. It's right now. Once you have your folded rectangular prism that you created before, this is the tape end. Sorry, I just reused this one, so it looks a little funny. That's where the tape was. So I folded that, and then you're drawing lines not quite to the fold. It's just cutting 2 lines. And if you've ever made pop-up cards, this is also a pop-up card method in reverse. And so if you cut these two slits and then push that middle section, the middle section in, you get what we call a couch. What we found is once they know how to do this, then they can make many other things. But this same shape, if you turn it sideways, can be a ticket booth or a somebody made it into a fireplace. So there are many, many ways of doing this. And I'll show you, oops, where is it? I had another sample with a small, just a small window instead of such a wide one. And then you can make windows in a building. Thought I had that in front of me. So now I'm going to go back and share again so that you can see the idea of this. Okay. So I'm going to explain this room in a minute and how to make that, but just to show you that that same rectangular prism, which can be a building or a vehicle or a tunnel or a bench, as it's simple two folds, where people often say, oh, like origami, but it's not like origami because origami has many folds. We have 2 or 3 folds, and that's it. We designed this to be as simple as possible so that kids can learn the methods and then use them over and over again. So you can see the couch in this picture. Wait, before I do, I'm going to show you about the paper corner also. I do want to show you one other thing on this. If you look at the bottom row on here, if you cut slits on the end of the paper tray, you can fold them either in or out. And so let me just go back. On this one, if you look at the bottom row on this screen, I hope you can see it. Yes, you can see it. When you cut those flaps, if you fold them out, it gives you a way to attach your rectangular prism to a vertical, you can attach a vertical prism to a horizontal piece of paper, or sometimes we make a paper tray as the base. And so I can show you a sample of this. Oops, I'm going the wrong way, sorry. And so the same idea, you can make a, let me just show you this again. So this is a rectangular prism. This is a larger version of it. And what we did was we cut these flaps, because if you make these flaps and then put tape on them, it allows you to attach this very neatly, because then your tape is on the same plane as the bottom page. I'm sure that makes sense. It makes securing objects much stronger and actually easier, instead of sort of that curved tape thing that you will often see kids do. So these flaps are extremely helpful for making attachments. And then the same flaps, maybe a little bit deeper cut. If you fold them in, you get, you can close off the box. And if you're doing you want to do a math activity, you can figure out how much you have to cut at each end, because you can do the same thing on both ends to turn your rectangular prism into a cube. And that's a math extension that we talk about sometimes. But again, simple. 4 snips, fold in or fold out. You've now added a whole nother dimension to your project. Okay, so now we're going to come back and share again. I just like to show things in real time. Okay, so particularly for most of you, because you're dealing with literacy and literature, we have a very simple and incredibly inspiring project called a paper corner. And some of you may have seen this kind of thing before. It's fabulous for storytelling. And it's a free download on our website. It's incredibly simple to make. This is the image of the page you would get when you download. And I'm just going to show this on here. So if you have whatever size piece of paper, if you have a full sheet, it makes a bigger corner, but you're folding your paper, excuse me, in half, both directions. So you fold it long edge to long edge, rub that crease. Now you need that crease rubbed sharply. Then open it and then fold the short edge to short edge. So either way, you want to fold it this way and then fold it this way. You want to fold both directions. I have my corner here. And then you cut from the longer edge, you cut up. And then what we do is we have the students decide what their project is. We do this with book reports a lot. The back piece is the background or the horizontal, and then the base is the floor. And then you cross over the pieces, and it makes this corner. So hopefully that makes sense. And here are some students working on this. You can do it with any kind of paper. It can be construction paper. It doesn't, I mean, the white paper is great because it's easy to draw on, but cardstock is great, construction paper, white paper, something where they can create their own environment. It does not have to be a room. It can be a playground. It could be a forest. It could be a classroom. It could be a home. It could be whatever they want it to be. And here are some examples of projects that we did. I work with a group in New York that brings authors into classrooms. And so they have a whole series of books. So these were actually based on books that the kids were creating in the environment from the book they were reading. And these are all simple folds. These are rectangular prisms as benches. The blue table with the computer on it is just a piece of paper folded with two folds to make the legs. You can see the little orange rectangular prism that became a chair instead of a couch. It's just more narrow. And I'll show you some more pictures of how this works. And in my years of doing this, as soon as we create the corner, the kids get it. They see it. They get very excited. It's easy. It's quick. You can easily do this in a 45-minute class, or you can do it in a multi-week project. It just depends how elaborate you want it to be and how many corners you make. So you can make just one, but you can also make multiple corners and attach them. So these are two corners attached, facing each other. These are corners back to back. And this method, there's also a method of folding the middle piece up. Some of you may know this, so that you can actually close this up into a book if you make all four pieces. So in this one, you might be able to see that the black and white floor actually has a crease in it. If that folds up and you do that on all four sides, the whole thing will close itself up into a little book or a little booklet all by itself. Here, this is a better example of how you can create. And then other options are stacking the corners. We do an escape room. We do model escape rooms out of these corners. And so that's why this has a hole in it, because there's an escape hatch. If you're stacking paper corners, particularly if they're made out of copy paper, it does help to reinforce the back of it. So that's why I show this picture with these two strips of cardboard glued on to the back, just because it gives it a little more stability, because that one is actually for paper corners. And I'm just going to show you some examples of what kids have used with our rectangular prisms, our paper tray, which I think I'll have time to show you how to make that, and the paper corner. And these are elaborate, detailed rooms, many of them based on stories of some kind. Again, this is that where it's the back piece. You can use an extra piece of paper to make a roof. You know, our goal is not to limit anybody, it's to inspire. So whatever kids come up with on their own based on that. In this one, there's a bunk bed. And the bunk bed is two paper trays and these beam pieces, which we'll come back to. But that's a great example of how the size of the piece you're making determines how it can be used. This was a museum. Somebody decided to make a museum. And then here's a city project where we were just using paper trays and rectangular prisms, and I have hundreds of pictures of projects in this vein. Okay, so now we're going to make a paper tray because that's probably the most useful piece. So if you take whatever size you want to use, the idea is that I'm going to leave this up so you can, I think it's easy to follow these instructions, but what you're doing is you're taking your paper and you're folding the edges over. It's what the way I tend to do it is fold it over and then unfold and then fold the next, but you're folding all four sides over. It depends what you're making, but usually it's about a half an inch to an inch. Depends how deep you want it to be, but you want to try to get all four sides consistent. You fold them all over, and then you open up the whole thing and you find the parallel lines. And in the sunlight behind me is going to make this a little, I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second, because what I always do when I'm starting this, once the kids know how to do it, I don't have to do it anymore, but I will always mark it so they can see where the parallel lines are. I just wanted to show you that as I fade into the background here. Okay. And then you just snip those lines. You want to make sure they don't cut all the way across. It's another thing that we watch out for. But they get the hang of this really quickly. And then if you've done it at home, you can see that what you get is a very flexible, that you can turn your edges up and it creates a kind of a paper tray. And then you put tape on all four sides. And once you have that paper tray, you can use it for many, many things. And again, it can be made in, if you can see my little screen, they can be made in different sizes. So it could be a swimming pool, or it could be the base of a project. There are some variations on the page, but what if you do just one end versus the other? You can make a soccer, a goal. Just again, the point of these is not it's not the project specifically, it's learning how to make these shapes, learning how to make these techniques, and combining them in ways that fit whatever your project is. So one of the common things that we do with the paper tray is we build a different kind of house. This is a sturdier house than the paper corner. This takes longer. This is more of an engineering project because it fits together. We take just flat rectangular pieces of paper and fold them in half the long way. And that fits perfectly into the corners of a paper tray. And that becomes the beam. So it mimics in a simple way how buildings are made. You can stack the paper trays to make multiple floors. You can make multiple of these. These are sturdy, they become sturdy blocks, sturdy structures. If you make a smaller version of this, you get a bunk bed. So the kids are using paper trays quite a lot. It's also the base of that maze I showed you at the beginning. It just, again, the shapes get used over and over and over again. This is a whole bunch of, so yeah, I guess this was a maze. So they used paper trays to make the sections. We are in New York City. We have the big parade at Thanksgiving. And so the kids in New York tend to know about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. So we do a parade float. You can do this anywhere that you have parades. The kids know what they are. The kids make their own parade floats. And so the bottom piece is a paper tray. And what we can't see in this picture, it's an upside down paper tray. And underneath that, we've created a wheelbase. A piece of cardboard with wheels on it so that it can get glued in underneath so that it actually rolls. But we make a fruit stand or a farm stand or a shop out of the paper trays. And again, the legs are just those straight pieces of beams. Just like the creature that I showed you in the beginning, if you take a paper tray, and we have a packet that explains how to do this, and you put an extra fold in the middle and cut 2 more cuts, it'll fold up so you can make a suitcase. We do this a lot. It'll make that creature that'll open up. These are just variations, simple variations on the basic shapes. And we have a couple more minutes. I'm just going to quickly show you the other main shapes. So the rectangular prism is one of our most common ones. The paper corner is very flexible and useful. Paper tray, and then paper track. And we have multiple ways of attaching it if you're making a marble run or a ball run. But the track is used for many, many things, including, as I said earlier, that balance beam. It's just helpful. It is a strip of paper with the edges folded up. If you're using copy paper, we suggest folding the paper in half or you cut the paper in a different way. It's in our instructions, but then you fold up. So you have a little bit sturdier if you're doing it with copy paper, but copy paper or cardstock, it works. And then here are some of the ball runs or marble runs. I actually don't recommend marbles necessarily. They're a little bit too heavy. But beads or we use Model Magic. I have the kids make their own balls out of Model Magic because it's lightweight. They can make as many as they want. It doesn't roll underneath the cabinets when it falls off the track because they never think about blocking the end piece until the first one rolls away. There's many, many reasons why Model Magic works really well for us. But you can use wood beads or you can use you just want to use a lighter weight ball. And I have a lot of pictures of just ball runs. All right. And then these are just some others. This is our bridge project, making a lifting bridge. This is another marble run. I do a lot of teacher training. This was for an after-school program, and I was training the after-school teachers. So I had them, and this is all copy paper. They didn't know how to do this. We showed it to them, and then they made their own designs. That's the other advantage of this. There's not a standard way to make a marble run or a ball run. There's a standard way to make the supports and the tracks and maybe how to connect them, and then you let the kids figure it out on their own.
Someone did put a question in the chat. Mary asked, do you do lessons on just the basic shapes? How much time do you spend teaching the techniques at the beginning of the projects? And is that one session or maybe it's over multiple sessions?
Yeah, so it really depends so much. I talk to teachers who have a 40-minute session once every 2 weeks, and I talk to other teachers who have 45 minutes every day. And so it really depends. If you have a lot of time, then yes, start by trying to teach at least 1 or 2 shapes and then make a project. The paper corner is great as an early project because it's so straightforward and you don't have to teach them a lot of different things. But if I have my choice, I will go through the rectangular prism and the paper tray right away and have them practice it. And then we play with those a little bit and then get rid of those. I use white copy paper, small pieces. And so they practice the technique and then we get rid of those. We throw them away because they're not meant to be used in a project. And then we look at a project, whether it's a book theme or whatever we're doing, and then the kids have those shapes in their head and can use it. So then we'll make a paper corner. But if you don't have a lot of time or you only see the kids once or, you're all in different kinds of situations, then we focus more on a project and we teach them the technique and do the project at the same time. So we'll start with the paper corner, they'll decorate that, and we'll say we're going to be making a room, and then I'll walk them through making a rectangular prism, one that they might use in their project. So then I've given them the right size paper. So I don't know how helpful it's a little hard to answer that because it's so varied based on how old the kids are, how much time you have with them. So
yeah, that helps. Thank you.
I'm always interested in what other people think. So here are just that's the balance beam again. This is people doing balance beam. So I want to show you this. This is I'm not going to run the video on how to make this. This is a free download on our website. It is our catapult project. It is made out of a single sheet of paper, and it works. It's sturdy. It's fun. It works for kindergartners. It works for high school students. It is just the most popular project we have. The catapult is a single sheet of paper, and then the target is an additional piece that you can make or not make. But this is definitely a free download on our website. I highly recommend. Everybody loves this one. And it can be made with copy paper or with cardstock. And you can imagine how long we had to film to get this to work. This is pretty good. It doesn't always go in the target. But the other piece that's interesting about this is, kids play, most kids know what basketball is, but they don't think about it. And so what I use, a lot of these roller coasters, I have a lot of aspects of these projects where I try to break down the engineering behind it. So kids don't really think about the backboard that often. You would think it's obvious, but it's when they go to make their own, they don't. And so it's a good example of, we do this project without the backboard and then with the backboard so they can see the difference. And that helps to cement yet another technique for them. Oops. This is how to make the catapult, which you can see this is targets. It's again, everything is made with simple paper supplies. The only other piece we use is what we call our paper clip trick. So when we're doing the paper straws, which I mentioned earlier, this you definitely need copy paper. We have a paper clip trick for connecting the paper straws. And again, this is just a generic building material. It's really excellent. This is the pages to download it. The paper clip gets opened up into a kind of an L-shaped bracket, and the looped ends fit inside the paper straws, not the paper tubes, then you have to tape it on, but the paper straws, if they're rolled around a 1/4-inch dowel or a pencil, that loop will fit. You have to widen it a little bit, but anyway, so this is what the paper straw page looks like. This is basically how we roll them. We don't start right at the bottom, we fold it over. What have I got? One more minute. Okay, there's the paper clip trick. Okay, so that's the last piece of this. This is our cardboard engineering kit that I invented. I'm the only one who sells it. I always like to show it. And this again is the page showing you all the different packets. There are actually many more packets than I could fit on this page, but you can see the range. And then this is our contact information. We have a great Instagram account for engineering with paper. You can look at that. If you can look at that and see how to do the projects, please do it. We created the packets because teachers usually need a way to show their students how to do things, and also for the teachers themselves to learn how to do it. So we sell them because they're useful, but we really want people doing more hands-on activities. And we're all in the same side. We're all in the same world of this maker world and hands-on learning, but we know not everybody is. So the more we can get people doing some hands-on activity that's simple and straightforward, that's my goal. I think there's my screen again if you want to sign up for the email list, but also if you download the Catapult project or any of our free packets, you wind up on my list anyway. So.
We have about 5 minutes left. We can open the floor up to anyone that might have any questions. We did have one person earlier, Rainey, say that this is so cool, and thank you for walking us through all this stuff. Like, this is like, I'm already getting inspired with some stuff for summer reading. And then Monica says she's actually just getting distracted with her own making at this point. So already it's successful. So all the good things. Did anyone have any questions for Godwyn before we wrap up? You can put them in the chat. We can turn your mic on and camera on and ask and all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody followed along, because that's always fun to show whatever.
Looks like we had a few people that followed along. I did my best with my little Post-it notes down here, so I got little mini paper projects going myself.
Oh, great. Thanks. I can see Mary and Carl. Great. Yeah, and right. It's so much simpler than you think it will be. It works so well. I've been doing this for so long with kids, and then actually a little before the pandemic, we started to think about sharing it because everybody I showed it to said it was great. But I have to say, for the pandemic, we went into overdrive. That's when we started making the packets because kids could be home. We could do these shapes with them at home, and you can imagine you all were there. You're all in the same pandemic I was in, but we did it. That's when we started making all the packets because we needed them, and then we realized everybody else could use them and keep growing. And we sell a whole bundle of everything. I've had several library systems buy them from us for all the libraries. So happy to talk to you about any of that too. But just whatever you need, feel free to get in touch with me. Am I still sharing or did I stop? I stopped sharing.
You stop. I do have one question. I'm looking through. Someone did ask, do you know if anyone has ever tried this type of project with adults, especially older adults?
Well, it's a motor skills. So older adults are fine. That it's the issue of being able to fold and tape, and so as long as you're comfortable with that, I do it with teachers all the time. So I do it with adults, and it's great. But it's just a motor skills thing if you're going to do it with a population that's older than me that can do the folding and cutting. That's all. But yeah, actually, it was an adult who came up with the fireplace, who took this, what we always thought was couch and said, "Oh no, I'm going to make it a fireplace." So,
Nice. All right, so we got about a couple minutes left, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of wrap things up a little bit. First off, I'm gonna go ahead and post a link for anyone who has time to answer a survey for us to let us know like what you thought of this event, as well as like giving us some ideas for events in the future. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick. Really quickly, thank you, Godwyn, for joining us today. This was really great. Like this, I love all the things I'm seeing. I'm definitely gonna check out the website. For everyone else, we are currently in the middle of our problems of practice series of roundtables. We just finished our first 4, so our last one's going to be on staff growth and development and empowerment for maker spaces and training staff on that. And if anyone is ever interested in being a part of the library makers committees, like I said, I'm the chair of the events committee. So if anyone's ever interested in organizing events like this, you can find me on Library Makers and join the committee and help us out. So again, just want to thank you guys again for coming. Thank you again, Godwyn, for showing us all this stuff with engineering with paper. If you get a chance to check out her links, and if you haven't yet, you can sign up for a free account on Library Makers. All right, so thank you guys for joining us, and we will catch you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.